What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host with a new subreddit called r/Bad People Stories. Alright, so basically what this subreddit is, in case you don't know, probably don't, it's a smaller one. But it's a place to tell stories of terrible, rude, offensive, dishonest, or deceitful people that don't fit in other subs. Go on, let it out. An offshoot of r/Fat People Stories. Although I fail to see the correlation. Anyways, hope you enjoy. Let me know if you want more from the sub. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alrighty, this story's called Friend Puts a Friend in a Wheelchair and Brags About It. I'm not good at writing, so please excuse me. In February of year 9, a friend of mine and another girl did something seemingly insignificant. It was after school, and me and the girl this happened to, let's call her Sam, were walking away from our dorm room. The girl we were friends with, let's call her Jess, was walking to drama club in the opposite direction as us. We had recently been in a petty fight with her that we thought we'd get over pretty soon. We were wrong. She walks past us with a friend from the year below, and we think nothing of it. Then all of a sudden, I'm being pushed forward from behind, and Sam is being pushed sideways. Jess is a rugby player, strong, and she knows it. Turns out she pushed Sam and me and ran away laughing. After getting a good distance away from us, she yelled, "Screw you!" I have horrible balance, so I toppled forwards onto my knees with little to no injury, only ripped tights and skinned knees. I get up and turn to help Sam. She's fallen sideways on a set of stone steps that go into the assembly hall. She's conscious and holding her head. There is blood pouring from a cut on the top of her head. I help her stand up and we just stare after Jess in shock for a moment. The school's chaplain pops his head out from the door where she had fallen. He said he heard everything that happened and took us inside the assembly hall while I called Sam's mom. The chaplain tells us that he'll handle telling the school what happened, and we wait at the front of the school for her mom to pick her up. She lives quite nearby, so it takes minutes. She picks her up and heads home. I make my way to the train station to go home and fill in our two other friends on what happened. They are both shocked and angry that Jess would ever actually do this, but we all aren't surprised. She was raised on the philosophy that violence solves everything. The next day, I wake up to the news that on the way home, Sam's mom had to call an ambulance for her, and Sam was now in the hospital with the right side of her body completely paralyzed. What I was told was that the left side of her brain had been damaged, so the right side of her body stopped working. I don't know if this is accurate, but that was what her mom told me. I updated our two other friends and made my way to school. I talked to my train buddies about what happened and was slowly growing angrier and angrier. When I got in, I went to our usual spot where we hang out, which is outside the assembly hall, but the indoor part, not where we fell yesterday. The chaplain walks past with Jess and she snarls at me. This girl was an animal. I turn up my headphones. He takes her into the hall. When she walks out, she is crying her signature crocodile tears, trademarked. She turns to her mates, who have now gathered near the assembly hall doors, and says, and I quote, "Phew, I almost got in trouble." This made me angry. So when the chaplain walks out, I say loudly to him, "Just wanted to let you know that Sam's in the hospital because she's paralyzed." He looks at me disapprovingly because he knows what I'm doing. He tells me that he doesn't think that Jess meant to go that far, and she will be handled by the head of year 9. Just to clarify, I don't think she meant for things to go as far as they did, but she certainly didn't regret what she did. In fact, rumors spread around our year like wildfire. Rumors like, "I heard she broke her arm and she threw Sam in a bin and beat OP up," were being passed around, making their way to me and my friends, all originating from Jess herself. She was proud of what she had done. The head of year did nothing. She had dealt with our problematic friendship group for 2 years and had had enough. She yelled at me and my friends for talking about the situation with others when we were just clarifying what had happened. A group of boys who had been walking way in front of us when the incident happened came out and started spreading lies. I made it my job to remind people that as Jess, Sam, the friend from the year below, and myself were the only people who truly knew what happened. People made it their jobs to constantly question the story. Substitute teachers had heard of this story, and in art, we were asked, "Aren't you friends with that girl who was put in a wheelchair?" When Sam was eventually released from the hospital, she was told she may never walk again and would be wheelchair-ridden for the rest of her life. When this got out to people via social media, people in school started talking. Someone even suggested that she was faking it and bought a wheelchair online. It was at times like this when I used my card to leave lessons. Sam got the police involved. The police took Sam's and my statement, and I told the police about the unknown girl from drama club who watched the whole thing. Jess was called in for questioning. To clarify, she was allowed to refuse this, and it wasn't a legal requirement. Her mother claimed that her daughter would never do a thing like this, and yet she still turned up to the questioning with a solicitor. Just saying that if you are confident in your daughter's innocence, then why did she need legal protection? She was questioned, and the police had the makings of a case. The girl from drama club even stepped forward and gave a statement against Jess, leading her to be beaten up later. However, a week later, Sam and her family moved to America as they had been planning to do since year 7. The police dropped the case as she was no longer a British citizen, and Jess got off scot-free. The only punishment she received for putting my best friend in a wheelchair, however unintentional it was 2 days of isolation. Translation: spending 2 days break and lunch in the head of year's office. This girl bragged about her feat till the end of year 11. Never once had she apologized, and she only got worse. She bullied year 7s as a year 11, and she was known for her violent outbursts. The school tried to help her with counseling, but her family didn't help her at all. They encouraged her violent behavior, and quite frankly, they made a monster. She realized the type of person she was and did nothing to better herself. Fast forward to today, 4 years later from the incident. Sam is only just walking with expensive American healthcare and deteriorating mental health. Jess had no repercussions for her actions and was recently called out on social media for beating her boyfriend. Anyways, that is my story of a terrible girl who didn't get any punishment for the terrible thing she did. And yes, that is terrible. Holy crap. Imagine losing your freaking right side of your body over some petty argument and some irresponsibly powerful and stupid girl. I remember one time, I don't remember the context of this little thing, but I was really annoying to older kids when I was in like elementary and maybe junior high school, maybe? I'm not sure. There were these 2 girls, they were both a grade older than me. I'm not sure who instigated it. I could have been innocent, but you know what? I'll just give myself the blame here. I don't really remember, but I guess I was annoying them or something. But what happened was they double teamed me so bad. It was so funny. So like one grabbed my hair really bad. I had really long hair when I was a little kid. Anyways, where she grabbed it, she pulled so hard that the hair, like the part of my scalp where she pulled, like the hair was growing upright sort of a little bit, but it was long so it fell. But it stuck up a little bit and it stayed like that until that section of hair grew out. It was weird. Alright, this story's called 2 Fake Service Dogs Get Booted. Background: I have a service dog for PTSD and anxiety. I'm located in the USA, so the ADA governs what's acceptable for service animals. I work at a crafting store. My manager has a legitimate dog phobia, so we strictly enforce a no pets policy. Americans Disability Act blurb for the uninformed. There is no federally recognized registry for service animals. Service animals are not required to be trained through a special organization. Service animals are not required to wear a vest, leash wrap, bandana, etc. that identifies them as a service animal. I can literally go online, spend $35 and get an ID for a pumpkin. An emotional support animal is not a service dog. In order to be a service dog, the animal must have a trained task to mitigate the handler's disability as well as being exceptionally well-behaved in public. I'm working at the register with a long line of customers. There's a thick counter between me and the front door. My service dog, Stella, is laying on the floor behind me. In walks these 2 18-ish girls with 2 yellow Pomeranians off-leash in a cart. One Pomeranian pops out of the cart onto the floor and starts to wander off until its mom can grab it to bring it back. The dogs being off-leash? Strike 1. There are disabilities requiring a service dog to be off-leash, but it is rare. ADA requires all service animals to be on leash unless medically necessary to be off of it. The dog wandering off without its handler? Major strike 2. There are 2 questions a business can ask to determine legitimacy of a service animal. I grab the attention of the girls. Excuse me, ladies, are those service dogs?
Yes, they are.
What task do they provide for you?
Emotional support?
Now, my service dog definitely provides me with emotional support, but that is not a trained task. I reiterated that I needed to know what the dog's trained task was if they wanted to remain in the store. The girl gets all pissy and asks me if I really want her to pull out the paperwork for her dogs. Miss, I literally have a service dog next to me and, as such, am very familiar with the laws in regard to them. There is no paperwork for service dogs, and there are 2 questions I can ask you before you are allowed access. If you do not tell me what trained task your dogs perform, you will have to leave.
You really want to do this in front of all these people instead of doing your job?
At this point, I paged my manager, who came up and kicked them out. The girl came in without the dogs to make a purchase. I was as sweet as pie checking her out. She was salty as Frankfurter. Now let me back this up to say that I have denied access dozens of times to places because someone else claimed their dog was a legitimate service dog and then their dog acted a fool. Being able to not only call out but kick out 2 fakes? Freaking delicious. I feel like an idiot now because there have been multiple times where someone offered to pull their paperwork out for a service dog when I worked at a hotel so that they can avoid paying the pet fee that we had. I bet you I looked like a chump, or was this guy when I was being made a fool of? Come on, man. I'm kidding, it's obviously my fault. This story's called All She Wants Is Money. Here's a story about my aunt. We'll call her Ho because she's a deadbeat hoe. She never married my uncle, but they had 2 daughters together. Everyone thought the oldest daughter, who was 3, was autistic or something simply because she still wore diapers, couldn't talk, and wasn't well groomed. So my uncle died in a crazy work accident. He fell from the bucket of a cherry picker from 3 or 4 stories up. At the funeral, Ho admits to all of us that she's pregnant and it's not my uncle's kid. In our grieving state, apparently, we all forgave her, let her and her mom continue living rent-free in the house my grandpa was trying to flip in exchange for letting us still be in the kids' lives. So 6 months later, Ho has the baby and everything appears fine until one day the oldest daughter, remember she's 3, decides to pick up the new baby, go out the front door, and start walking down the street with little sister following. A neighbor witnessed this, had the kids come to her house, and called the police to do a well check on the house since a 3-year-old shouldn't be able to just walk out the front door with a newborn. Cops show up, get the kids, and walk them back to the house. Upon entry, both Ho and her mother are passed out in the living room, or what appears to be the living room. There is trash everywhere. You can't see the floor. Dirty clothes are piled everywhere. The girls' beds have holes in them. The back door is a blanket. There's roaches and rats, etc. The cops are baffled. The oldest daughter runs to the kitchen. A cop follows to see her scarfing down a very old bowl of cereal with chunky milk in it. Okay, it's time to wake the adults. They are obviously stunned to see the cops in the home and surprised to hear the reason for why they were called out. Police informed the women that CPS has already been called to pick up the kids and that if Ho wants to pursue getting them back, she needs to get the house up to code. She started off by trying to sue my grandpa since he owned the house. Once Grandpa explained to the judge and cops that she refused to let him on the property for the past 5 months, they let him off the hook. It was totally her responsibility to fix up the house. So one day while she was cleaning her bedroom, she found a secret box under the bed. Apparently, my uncle had started putting aside college money for his daughters. I think it totaled to $10,000 or more. There was even a note in the box stating what the money was for. What does Ho do? She takes the money and her boyfriend and they run off to Vegas. That was basically her stating she was surrendering her kids to the state, after which my grandparents immediately adopted. The newborn boy went to them and the 2 daughters went to my aunt. After 6 months of not hearing from Ho, she shows up pissed that grandparents are raising her son. She and her boyfriend plan a trick to get him back. they throw a bunch of shotgun shells, some used, some not, all over grandparents' backyard. They have an alley behind the yard, so easy backyard access, and then they call the cops saying the owners of the house were shooting rounds randomly from their backyard. Cops showed up and Grandpa had to pull out all of his guns to show none would hold the size shells that were found. It got found out that Ho lied to the police, and that was also put on her record. She gets pregnant again and gives that baby up too, so my aunt adopts that one too. Oh, also, remember we all thought the oldest daughter was autistic because of her general appearance? Turns out, Ho seriously was just too lazy to raise her. 3 months with my aunt, and both daughters were potty trained, speaking, their hair and skin looked great. Fast forward, oldest daughter is now 18 and has moved out of aunt's house. She decided to get back in touch with Ho because she's an innocent girl who doesn't believe her mother is as bad as we know she is. She ends up moving in with Ho to be close to her other 2 siblings. Meanwhile, Ho is hounding oldest daughter, talking about how he probably has money put aside somewhere else for the girls. Like a CD maybe or something. Has her searching online for unclaimed money for him since Ho can't get the money herself, but of course, a biological daughter can. Someone confiscate this woman's ovaries, come on! And it's really sad when stuff like this happens, the whole daughter going back to her mom despite it not being a good idea. Obviously, we can understand wanting to meet your biological mother. However, living with her, man. Obviously get both sides of the story, but think of who took care of you and gave you a quality of life that above, living in your own filth, literally, in multiple senses of the word. This story's called, Friend is Happy Someone Got Modelo Virus. I have this friend that I'm currently very pissed off at for a comment they made earlier. Their significant other's sister is a nurse and unfortunately got the Modelo virus from working in the hospital. My friend does not like their significant other's sister for some reasons, but in my opinion, they're mostly trivial. To give you an idea of these reasons, they don't like this sister's boyfriend because he's rude and has been to jail for drugs, which is really just the sister having bad taste, but today I received a text from my friend. The text informed me that the sister had gotten the virus from working, phrased like, "The sister got Modelo." Subsequent text said another reason my friend didn't like the sister, and karma, bench. When I read these, I got so pissed off I didn't respond. I knew I was going to blow up on my friend and possibly destroy our friendship. Almost regret not doing that now, because I physically don't understand why or how someone could be happy that the person they love's sister has the possibility of dying. Not to mention my state's healthcare system is already struggling with the lack of nurses and doctors and all. They're happy that we're down one more vital healthcare worker. Yet, my friend constantly complains about how awful quarantine is, how much they wish it was over. I just physically can't understand people sometimes. I'm not crazy for thinking that's an awful thing to say, right? And no, you're not. However, that is because you are educated, and this guy is clearly ignorant to the facts regarding this whole pandemic. I said this a few videos ago. We were talking about how seriously people are taking the pandemic, and I was saying how in the beginning I didn't take it seriously at all. I was laughing at the face of what actually is a serious thing. And it's important that we own up to the stupid things we say. Like, oh, it's no worse than a common cold. And yeah, maybe for a lot of people, but also for a lot of people, it's a serious thing. And even if you get it and you don't show symptoms, you can spread it to someone who will show very bad symptoms and possibly even die. So my advice to you regarding this thing is instead of blowing up on them and ruining your friendship, which I'm sure you value, why don't you just talk to them and inform them as to why what they said was stupid and tone deaf, and just make them appreciate the seriousness of the situation that the entire world is in, essentially. It could get better soon, and hopefully it does. However, it could also get worse before it does get better. And so it's up to us to make sure that doesn't happen, because realistically, if everyone in the entire world stayed in their homes away from everyone else for 2 weeks, this entire thing would be over. But obviously that's not going to happen anytime soon, because a lot of people literally just can't afford to miss work. They can't afford to stay home. There are so many factors that go into whether or not people can respond correctly to this pandemic. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.